Guruji. Anantam Shukrana Guru Maharaj for this beautiful divine satsang. Last week we read chapter 32 and 33 of Rudra Samhita Part 3. In this we read that Lord Shiva remembered the 7 celestial sages, and they all appeared in person in front of him, and they bowed down in front of the Lord, eulogized him greatly, and with their palms joined in reverence, they requested the Lord to guide them and to command them what he wanted from them. So Lord Shiva then told the 7 celestial sages his plight. He told them that gods had approached him to because they were all disturbed by the demon Tarkasur, and they all approached him because Brahma had given a boon to the Tarkasur that he could only be killed by Shiva's son. So all the gods wanted him to marry Parvati so that a son could be born of them and Tarkasur could be killed. Now, secondly, Parvati was also performing severe penance to attain Lord Shiva as her husband. And after performing the penance, she also requested the Lord to beg off her father for her hand. So he assumed the form of a mendicant and approached Himavat and Mena for Parvati's hand. Both of them denied Lord Shiva the hand because they did not know it was Lord Shiva, but the sooner they realized it was Lord Shiva himself, their devotion towards the Lord increased. Now when their devotion went up, all the other gods that were there, they realized that if Himavat gives his daughter's hand to Lord Shiva with single-minded devotion, then in that case he would attain salvation, which means he would attain divine form, which means he would no longer be present in his physical form in Bharat, and this mountain was a storehouse of endless gems. So the gods never wanted that to happen, and therefore they approached Lord Shiva to rebuke himself in front of Himavat, to create that doubt in Himavat's mind to give his daughter's hand to Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva agreed to that, and when he disguised himself as a beggar, as a Brahmin who was Vishnu's devotee, and he convinced Himavat that Shiva was not an appropriate bridegroom for his daughter. Now after that happened, he remembered the 7 celestial sages and said that because he had granted boon to Parvati and also promised the gods that he would help them, he wanted to marry Parvati, and he wanted the 7 celestial sages to straighten out the matter with Himavat so that they can convince Himavat to give Parvati's hand to Shiva. So all the celestial sages, after happily and humbly agreeing to it, went to Himavat city, where they were greeted by Himavat, and Himavat asked them the purpose of the visit. So of course the sages said that they wanted his daughter Parvati to be married to Lord Shiva. So to this Himavat said that he was advised against it by a Brahmin who was a Vishnu devotee. That is number one reason he would not want to do that. Secondly, his wife Mena, she had entered the chamber of anger, and she was absolutely not in agreement with this alliance, and she had threatened that she would kill herself if Himavat even considered Parvati being married to Lord Shiva. So he said all these things, and then the celestial sages sent Arundhati, who was Vashishta's wife, to Parvati and Mena's chamber, and there she tried to convince Mena to get her daughter married to Lord Shiva. Then she came back, and the 7 celestial sages told Himavat that the only reason Lord Shiva wants to marry Parvati is because he has to help the gods so that they can have a son, and also because Parvati performed penance. Now hearing all this, Himavat said that by his own free will he will not give his daughter's hand to someone like Lord Shiva, because he completely discredited Lord Shiva in comparison to his daughter. So Vashishta, who was the wise one amongst the sages, told Himavat that Parvati has always been married to Lord Shiva in every birth. So even if he does not agree to the alliance, it was fated, and if he wanted to achieve bliss, he would readily agree to it. And for that he cited an example. He said that in the times of distress, Chief of Kings Anaranya also gave his daughter to a Brahmin just to save his assets. And then Himavat asked about the story of Anaranya, and Vashishta then of course told him the story of Anaranya, which we will read today. Today we will be reading chapter 34, which is the story of Anaranya, chapter 35, the story of Padma and Pipalada, and chapter 36, which is the statement of 7 celestial sages. Shweta Aunty will be reading in English and Ajay Uncle will be reading in Hindi. Jai Guruji.
Jai Guruji, Shukrana for the Seva. Chapter 34, the story of Anaranya. Vashishta said, the king Anaranya hailed from the race of the 14th Manu Indra Savarni. The great king Anaranya, born of Mangalaranya, was very strong. He was a special devotee of Shiva and ruled over the 7 continents. Having Bhrigu as his priest, he performed 100 sacrifices. He did not accept the position of Indra even when offered by the gods. O Himavad, 100 sons were born to him and a beautiful daughter Padma who was equal to Lakshmi. O excellent mountain, he was more fond of his daughter than of his 100 sons. He had 5 queens who were endowed with great qualities and fortunes and were loved by him over and above his life. The girl entered the prime of her youth in her father's palace. The king issued letters of invitation for the requisition of good bridegrooms. In the meantime, the sage Pipalada, eagerly hastening back to his hermitage, saw a certain Gandharva in an isolated palace in Penance Grove. The Gandharva was an expert in the science of erotics. He was in the company of women. He was therefore completely submerged in the ocean of pleasure, sexual dalliance, and was lusty. On seeing the great sage become very lustful, he lost interest in penance and began to think of acquiring a wife. Thus the good sage spent a long time with his mind utterly agitated by pangs of love. Once while the good sage was on his way to the river Pushpabharda for taking his bath, he happened to see the young maiden Padma, who was as charming as goddess Lakshmi. The sage asked the person standing by, "Who is this girl?" The people, afraid of the curse, bowed to the sage and replied. The people said, "The excellent lady, the repository of good qualities, is the daughter of Anaranya and is called Padma. She is another Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. She is being wooed by great kings." Brahma said, on hearing the words of the people who spoke the truth, the sage became much agitated in the mind and was eager to possess her. O mountain, the sage took bath and worshipped his favorite deity Shiva duly. The lustful sage went to the council chamber of Anaranya for the sake of alms. Immediately after seeing the sage, the king was struck with awe and bowed to him. He offered him homage and devoutly worshipped him. Out of love, the sage accepted everything and ultimately requested for the hand of his daughter. The king kept quiet, being unable to give any decisive reply. The sage repeated his request, saying, "O great king, give me your daughter. Otherwise, in a trice, I will reduce everything to ashes." The king and his attendants were overwhelmed by the splendor of the sage. Staring at the old emaciated Brahmin, they began to cry. The queens, knowing not what shall be done, lamented. The chief queens, the mother of the girl, fell unconscious in the excess of her grief. The brothers of the girl were agitated with sorrow. O Lord of mountains, everything and everyone connected with the king was overwhelmed with grief. In the meantime, the wise Brahmin, the excellent preceptor of the king, as well as his intelligent priests, came there. The king bowed to them and paid homage. He cried before them. He explained to them everything and asked them what was proper step to be taken immediately. The Brahmin, the preceptor of the king, and the scholarly priests were experts in sacred lore and polity. They advised the king in that matter. The preceptor and the priest said, "O wise king, listen to our beneficial words. Do not be anxious. In the company of your kinsmen, turn your good attention to the sacred text. O king, whether today or after a year, the princess is to be given to a deserving person, a Brahmin or anyone else. In the 3 worlds, we do not see more deserving person than this Brahmin. Give your daughter to this sage and save your riches. O king, if all riches face the danger of destruction due to one object or person, the wise man saves everything by abandoning that object or person unless it to be that who has sought refuge." Vashishta said, on hearing the words of the wise, the king lamented again and again, but ultimately offered his daughter fully bedecked. in ornaments to the excellent sage. O mountain, accepting and marrying the beautiful maiden Padma on a par with goddess Lakshmi in accordance with holy laws, the delighted sage returned to his abode. After giving his daughter to an old man, the king was much dejected in mind. Abandoning everything, he went to the forest for performing penance. O mountain, when the king went to the forest, the queen passed away due to the pangs of separation from her husband and daughter. Without the king, the respectable sons and officers of the king became unconscious. The other people, thinking that the king was dead, lamented much. Anaranya went to the forest, performed great penance, and worshipped Shiva with devotion. In the end, he attained Shivaloka, free from all ailments. The eldest son of the king, Kirtiman, virtuously ruled over the kingdom and tended the subjects like his own children. Thus, O mountain, I have narrated to you the auspicious story of Anaranya, how he saved his race and his wealth by offering his daughter to the sage. O king of mountains, you too, give your daughter to Shiva. Save the entire family and keep even the gods under your control. Chapter 35, the story of Padma and Pipalada. Narada said, "Oh dear, what did the excellent mountain do after hearing the anecdote of Anaranya and the marriage of his daughter? Please tell me." Brahma said, after hearing the story of Anaranya, including the anecdote of the offer of his daughter, the Lord Mountains asked Vashishta with palms joined in reverence. The Lord of Mountains said, "O leading sage Vashishta, O son of Brahma, O merciful one, you have narrated the wonderful story of Anaranya. What did Padma, the daughter of Anaranya, do after marrying sage Pipalada? Please mention her story fully." The Lord of Mountains said, "O leading sage Vashishta, O son of Brahma, O merciful one, you have narrated the wonderful story of Anaranya. What did Padma, the daughter of Anaranya, do after marrying Pipalada? Please mention her fully." Vashishta said, "The very old and venerable sage Pipalada returned to his hermitage along with his wife Padma and passed time in pleasure. He was not too much sensuous. He continued to perform his penance and holy rites in the forest and on the mountain. The daughter of Anaranya served the sage devoutly, physically, mentally, and verbally like Lakshmi serving Vishnu. Once Dharma assumed the guise of a king by his magical power and happened to see on the way that lady of gentle smiles going to celestial river for her holy dip. The Lord Dharma was seated in a beautiful chariot studded with gems. He was bedecked in many kinds of ornaments. He was in the prime of fresh youth, glorious and lustrous like the cubit. On seeing Padma, he spoke thus, in order to know the innermost feelings of sage's wife. Dharma said, "O beautiful woman, you are Lakshmi herself. You're charming, you're worthy of a king. You are in the very prime of youth. You will ever be young. You are a lovely, sweet lady. I'm telling you the truth. O slender-limbed lady, you lack luster and color in the presence of sage Pipalada, who is old and weak. Cast off that ruthless old Brahmin always engaged in penance. Look up to me, a great king, heroic in sexual dalliance and agitated by Kama. A beautiful woman acquires beauty as a result of the merit of a previous birth. The beauty becomes completely fruitful only after embracing a man of aesthetic taste. I am the lover of 1,000 beautiful women. I am an expert in the erotic science and literature. Abandon that husband and make me your slave. You can indulge in sexual dalliance in the beautiful secluded forest, mountains and banks of river in my company. Make your life fruitful." Vashishta said. Saying this, he got down and was eager to catch her hands. The chaste lady then addressed him thus. Padma said, "Away, away, go away, you sinful king. If you cast your lustful oogles at me, you will be doomed in a trice. How can I resort to you, lecherous and mad after women, after forsaking the excellent sage Pipalada, whose body is sanctified by austerities? By the very touch of a person under the influence of women, all merits are destroyed. He is a great sinner. His very sight promotes sins. Even if he performs holy rites, a person succumbing to the wiles of women is always impure. The manes, the gods, and all men despise him. Of what avail is knowledge, penance, repetition of sacred mantras, sacrifice, adoration, learning, and charitable gift to him who is henpecked? Since you spoke to me viewing me with the feelings that I am your wife, although I ought to have been viewed as a mother, you will have a gradual decline as a result of my curse. Vashishta said, on hearing the curse of the chaste woman, O Lord of mountains, Dharma cast off the guise of a king and assumed his real form. Tremblingly he spoke thus. Dharma said, O mother, know me as Dharma, elderly and venerable to men of wisdom and preceptors. O chaste lady, I always consider others' wives as mothers. It was to know your innermost feelings that I approached you. I knew your mind. Still I was urged by fate. Only proper suppression, not the contrary, is carried out by you. Chastisement of those who go astray from the right path is carried out by Shiva himself. Obeisance to Shiva who distributes happiness, misery, boons, prosperity, or adversity on all. Obeisance to Shiva who can make people enemies or friends, create affection or quarrel, to generate or destroy things. Obeisance to Shiva who has made milk white, who has bestowed chillness on water and heat on fire. Obeisance to Shiva by whom the primordial nature, the principles Mahat, etc., Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and others are created. Brahma said, after saying thus, Dharma, the most venerable god in the universe, stood in front of her stunned but delighted at her chastity. But he did not say anything. Princess Padma, the chaste beloved of Pipalada, O mountain, was surprised on realizing that it was Dharma and said, Padma said, O Dharma, you are the ever-present witness of all activities. O Lord, why did you deign to deceive me to know my mind? O Dharma, what has been done already does not amount to any guilt on my part. You have been cursed in vain by me, but it was due to my ignorance and innate nature of women. I am now thinking as to what shall be done about it. May that idea strike me whereby I may get peace. This sky, these quarters, and the winds may get destroyed, but the curse of a chaste lady will never be destroyed. In the Satya Yuga, you shine with all the legs, O King of gods, on all occasions, day or night, like the moon on a full moon night. If you are destroyed, the annihilation of all creations will occur, but a sense of helpless despair is unnecessary, so I shall explain. In the Tritiya Yuga, one leg shall be defunct, O excellent God. Another leg too shall be defunct in Dwapara, and the third one in Kali age, O Lord. In the latter half of Kali, all the legs will be chopped off. Again in Satya Yuga, you will attain perfection. In the Satya Yuga, you will be all pervasive, and in other yugas partially so. Thus, in accordance with the yugas, you will be maintaining your position. Let these words of mine be true and pleasing to you. I am now going to serve my husband. O Lord, you return to your abode. Brahma said, on hearing her words, Dharma became delighted. Then Dharma, the son of Brahma, spoke to the chaste lady who had been speaking to him. Dharma said, O chaste lady, you are blessed. You are devotedly attached to your husband. Hail to you. Take this boon. Your husband is the cause of your great protection. Let him be a young man with sexual vigor and righteousness. He shall be comely in appearance, good in conduct, eloquent in speech, and perpetually stable in youth. Let him enjoy more longevity than Markandeya. Let him be richer than Kubera. Let him enjoy more prosperity and power than Indra. Let him be a devotee of Shiva on a par with Vishnu. Let him be a greater Siddha than Kapila. Let him vie with Brahaspati in intelligence and Brahma in equanimity. You will be blessed with all the fortunes of your master as long as you live. Also, you will be perpetually young. Undoubtedly, you will become the mother of 10 sons who will be greater than your husband. They will have all good qualities and live long. O chaste lady, let your abode be endowed with all the riches, brightly illuminated always, and superior to even the abode of Kubera. Vashishta said, O excellent mountain, after saying thus, Dharma stood quite there. She circumambulated him, bowed to him, and returned to her house. Bestowing blessings upon her, Dharma returned to his abode. He praised Padma lovingly in every assembly he visited. He sported about in secret with her husband, who became a young man. She gave birth to sons who surpassed her husband in their good qualities. All kind of riches were granted to the couple, increasing their happiness. They were conducive to the prosperity here and hereafter. O Lord of mountains, this ancient story of the couple has been narrated to you. You have heard the story with pleasure and respect. Knowing the real situation, give your daughter Parvati to Shiva, cast off sins, O Lord of mountains, in the company of your wife Mena. After a week, there is a very auspicious hour, very rare to meet with. The preceding planet of the Lagna is in the Lagna. The moon is in conjunction with his son Mercury, as well as the constellation Rohini. The moon and the stars occupy pure positions. The month is Margasirsa and the day is Monday, free from all defects. All the planets are in auspicious conjunction. They are not aspected by the evil planets. The Jupiter is in a position that is conducive to the birth of a good child and all good fortune to the bridegroom. O Lord of mountains, give your daughter Parvati, the mother of the universe, the primordial being, to Shiva, the father of the universe. You will then get quiet and contentment. Brahma said, after saying this, the excellent sage Vashishta, most excellent of wise men, stopped after remembering Lord Shiva, the creator of divine sports of diverse varieties. Chapter 36, the statement of the seven sages. Brahma said, on hearing the words of the seven sages, Himachala, his wife, and attendants were very much surprised. The Lord of the mountains spoke to other mountains. Himachala said, O Lord of mountains, Meru, O Saya, O Gandha Madana, O Mandara, O Menaka, O Vindhya, all of you listen to my words. Vashishta says like this, it is to be considered what I shall do now. You consider well, decide and let me know. Brahma said, on hearing his words, Sumeru and other mountains decided carefully and spoke to Himalaya lovingly. The mountains said, of what avail is it a long discussion and deliberation now? What should be done is only that. She is born only for the purpose of the gods. Incarnating for the sake of Shiva, she shall be given to Shiva. Shiva has been propitiated by her and Shiva has also spoken to her. Brahma said, on hearing the words of Meru and others, Himachala was greatly pleased and Parvati laughed within herself. Arundhati too convinced Mena with reasons, statements and examples from various mythological legends. Then the wife of mountains too was delightedly convinced. She entertained Arundhati, the sages and the mountain with grand feast and then took food herself. Then the chief of mountains, freed from wrong notions and grown wise, spoke with palms joined in reverence and mind extremely delighted. Himachala said, O fortunate sages, please listen to my words. All my bewilderment has vanished since I have heard the story of Shiva and Shiva. Everything that I possess, my body, wife, Mena, sons, daughter, assets and achievements and other things belong to Shiva and not otherwise. Brahma said, after saying so, he bedecked his daughter with various ornaments. Then he took them all and placed them on the lap of the sage, saying, these are the presents I have to give her. The sages said, O mountain, you are the donor. Shiva is the medicant and the alms, goddess Parvati. What else can be better than this? Since the course of your summits is befitting, you are blessed. You are the chief of all mountains. You are great in every respect. Brahma said, after saying thus, the sages of pure mind offered their blessings to the girl, be pleasing to Shiva. They touched her with their hands and continued, everything will be well with you. As the moon in the bright half of the month, may your qualities increase. After saying thus and offering fruits and flowers to the Lord of mountains, the sages made him believe that the alliance was a settled fact. The great chaste lady Arundhati tempted Mena further with Shiva's good qualities. According to the worldly convention, they smeared the mustache of the mountain with powdered turmeric and saffron as an auspicious custom. After fixing the auspicious lagna for the marriage and congratulating and complimenting one another, the sages came to Shiva's abode for the fourth day. After reaching the place, Vashishta and other sages bowed to Shiva and eulogized him with different hymns. They then spoke to Lord Shiva. The sages said, O Lord Shiva, Lord of the gods, O great Lord Shiva, please listen lovingly to the narration of what we, your attendants, have done. O great Lord, the Lord of mountains and Mena, have been urged with different kinds of statements and examples from mythological legends. Undoubtedly, he is enlightened. Parvati has been betrothed to you by the Lord of Mountains. It is not otherwise. Now please start for the marriage with your attendants and the gods. O great God, O Lord, go to the abode of Himachala and marry Parvati in accordance with the customs for the sake of a son. Brahma said, on hearing their words, Lord Shiva, who was delighted and who loved to follow worldly conventions, laughed and said, Lord Shiva said, O fortunate one, a marriage ceremony has never been witnessed nor even heard of by me before. The details of the same shall be mentioned by you all specifically. Brahma said on hearing these words in a worldly vein uttered by Shiva, they laughingly replied to Sadashiva, Lord of the gods. The sages said, please invite the summoned Vishnu with his retinue, Brahma and his sons Lord Indra, all the sages, Yakshas, Gandharvas, Kinnaras, Siddhas, Vidyadharas, heavenly nymphs and others. All of them will jointly accomplish everything for you. There is no doubt about it. Brahma said, saying this and taking his permission, the 7 sages joyfully returned to their abodes, praising the way of Shiva. This concludes the reading in English. Ajay uncle will read in Hindi now. Jai Guruji.
जय गुरु जी संगत जी, आज हम अध्याय 34, 35 और 36 का अध्ययन करेंगे, जिसमें बताया गया है सप्त ऋषियों के समझाने तथा मेरुवादी के कहने से पत्नी सहित हिमवान का शिव के साथ अपनी पुत्री के विवाह का निश्चय करना तथा सप्त ऋषियों का शिव के पास जा उन्हें सब बात बताकर अपने धाम को जाना। ब्रह्मा जी कहते हैं, हे नारद, तदंतर वशिष्ठ ने प्राचीन काल में राजा अनरण्य के द्वारा अपनी कन्या पद्मा का पिपलाद के साथ विवाह करने की तथा धर्म के वरदान से पिपलाद के तरुण अवस्था रूप गुण, सदा स्थिर रहने वाले यौवन, कुबेर और इंद्र से भी बढ़कर धन, ऐश्वर्य, भक्ति, सिद्धि एवं समता प्राप्त करने की तथा पद्मा के स्थिर यौवन, सौभाग्य, संपत्ति एवं भर्ता के द्वारा परम गुणवान 10 पुत्रों की प्राप्त करने की कथा सुनाकर कहा, शैलेंद्र, तुम मेरे कथन के सार तत्व को समझकर अपनी पुत्री पार्वती का हाथ महादेव जी के हाथ में दे दो और मैना सहित तुम्हारे मन में जो कुरोष है उसे त्याग दो। आज से 1 सप्ताह व्यतीत होने पर अत्यंत शुभ और दुर्लभ मुहूर्त आने वाला है। उस समय चंद्रमा लग्न के स्वामी होकर अपने समय पुत्र बुध के साथ लगन में ही स्थित होंगे। उनका रोहिणी नक्षत्र के साथ योग होगा। चंद्रमा उतारे शुद्ध होंगे। मार्ग शीर्ष मास के अंतर्गत संपूर्ण दोषों से रहित सोमवार को, जबकि लग्न पर संपूर्ण शुभ ग्रहों की दृष्टि होगी, पाप ग्रहों की दृष्टि नहीं होगी तथा बृहस्पति ऐसे स्थान पर स्थित होंगे जहां से वे उत्तम संतान और पति का सौभाग्य देने में समर्थ होंगे। ऐसे मुहूर्त में तुम अपनी कन्या मूल प्रकृति ईश्वरी जगदम्बा पार्वती को जगत पिता भगवान शिव के हाथों में देकर कृतार्थ हो जाओ। ऐसा कहकर ज्ञान शिरोमणि मुनीश्वर वशिष्ठ, नाना प्रकार की लीला करने वाले, भगवान शिव का स्मरण करके चुप हो गए। वशिष्ठ जी की बात सुनकर सेवकों और पत्नी सहित गिरिराज हिमालय बड़े विस्मित हुए और दूसरे पर्वत से बोले। हिमालय ने कहा, गिरिराज, मेरु, समहा, गंधमादन, मंदराचल, मैनाक और विंध्याचल आदि पर्वतेश्वरों, आप सब लोग मेरी बात सुने। वशिष्ठ जी की ऐसी बात कह रहे हैं, अब मुझे क्या करना चाहिए? इस बात का विचार करना है। आप लोग अपने मन से सब बातों का निर्णय करके जैसा ठीक समझे वैसा करें। हिमाचल की यह बात सुनकर सुमेरु आदि पर्वत भली भांति निर्णय करके उनसे प्रसन्नतापूर्वक बोले। पर्वतों ने कहा, महाभाग, इस समय विचार करने से क्या लाभ? जैसा ऋषि लोग कहते हैं उनके अनुसार ही कार्य करना चाहिए। वास्तव में यह कन्या देवताओं का कार्य सिद्ध करने के लिए ही उत्पन्न हुई है। इसने शिव के लिए ही अवतार लिया है, इसलिए यह शिव को ही दे दी जानी चाहिए। यदि इसने रुद्रदेव की आराधना की है और रुद्र ने आकर इसके साथ वार्तालाप किया है तो इसका विवाह उन्हीं के साथ होना चाहिए। ब्रह्मा जी कहते हैं, नारद, उन मेरु आदि पर्वतों की यह बात सुनकर हिमाचल बड़े प्रसन्न हुए और गिरजा भी मन ही मन हंसने लगी। अरुंधति ने भी अपने अनेक कारण बताकर, नाना प्रकार की बातें सुनाकर और विविध प्रकार के इतिहासों का वर्णन करके मैना देवी को समझाया। तब शैलपत्नी मेनका सब कुछ समझ गई और प्रसन्नचित हो उन्होंने मुनियों को, अरुंधति जी को और हिमाचल को भी भोजन कराकर स्वयं भोजन किया। तदंतर ज्ञानी गिरिश्रेष्ठ हिमाचल उन मुनियों की भली भांति सेवा की। उनका मन प्रसन्न और सारा भ्रम दूर हो गया है। उन्होंने हाथ जोड़कर प्रसन्नतापूर्वक उन महर्षियों से कहा। हिमालय बोले, महाभाग, सप्तऋषियों, आप लोग मेरी बात सुने। मेरा सारा संदेह दूर हो गया है। मैंने शिव पार्वती के चरित्र सुन लिए। अब मेरा शरीर, मेरी पत्नी मैना, मेरे पुत्र पुत्री, रिद्धि सिद्धि और अन्य सारी वस्तुएं भगवान शिव की ही हैं, दूसरे किसी की भी नहीं। ब्रह्मा जी कहते हैं, नारद, ऐसा कहकर हिमाचल ने अपनी पुत्री की ओर आदरपूर्वक देखा और उसे वस्त्राभूषणों से विभूषित करके ऋषियों की गोद में बिठा दिया। तत्पश्चात वे शैलराज पुनः प्रसन्न हो उन ऋषियों से बोले, यह भगवान रुद्र का भाग है, इसे मैं उन्हीं को दूंगा, ऐसा निश्चय कर लिया है। ऋषि बोले, गिरिराज, भगवान शंकर तुम्हारे याचक हैं, तुम स्वयं उनके दाता हो और पार्वती देवी भिक्षा है, इससे उत्तम और क्या हो सकता है। हिमाचल, तुम समस्त पर्वतों के राजा, सबसे श्रेष्ठ और धन्य हो। अतः तुम्हारे शिखरों की सामान्य गति है। तुम्हारे सभी शिखर सामान्य रूप से पवित्र एवं श्रेष्ठ हैं। ब्रह्मा जी कहते हैं, नारद, ऐसा कहकर निर्मल अंत करने वाले उन मुनियों ने गिरिराज कुमारी पार्वती को हाथ से छूकर आशीर्वाद देते हुए कहा, शिवे, तुम भगवान शिव के लिए सुखदायिनी हो, तुम्हारा कल्याण होगा। जैसे शुक्ल पक्ष में चंद्रमा बढ़ते हैं, उसी प्रकार तुम्हारे गुणों की वृद्धि हो। ऐसा कहकर सब मुनियों ने गिरिराज को प्रसन्नतापूर्वक फल फूल दे विवाह के पक्के होने का दृढ़ विश्वास कर लिया। उस समय परम सती सुमुखी अरुंधति ने प्रसन्नतापूर्वक भगवान शिव के गुणों का बखान करके मैना को लुभा लिया। तदंतर गिरिराज हिमवान ने परम उत्तम मांगलिक लोकाचार आश्रय ले हल्दी और कुमकुम से अपनी दाढ़ी मूछ का मार्जन किया। तत्पश्चात चौथे दिन उत्तम लग्न का निश्चय करके परस्पर संतोष दे वे सप्तऋषि भगवान शिव के पास चले गए। वहां जाकर शिव को नमस्कार और विविध सूक्तियों से उनका स्तवन करके वे वशिष्ठ आदि सब मुनि परमेश्वर शिव से बोले। ऋषियों ने कहा, देवदेव, महादेव, परमेश्वर, महाप्रभु, आप प्रेम पूर्वक हमारी बात सुने। आपके इन सेवकों ने जो कार्य किया है उसे जान ले। हे महेश्वर, हमने नाना प्रकार से सुंदर वचन और इतिहास सुनाकर गिरिराज और मेनका को समझा दिया है। गिरिराज ने आपके लिए पार्वती का वाग्दान कर दिया है। अब इसमें कोई नया नुनच नहीं है। अब आप अपने पार्षदों तथा देवताओं के साथ उनके यहाँ विवाह के लिए जाइए। महादेव प्रभु, अब शीघ्र हिमाचल के घर पधारिए और वेदाक्त रीति से पार्वती को अपने लिए पानी ग्रहण कीजिए। सप्तऋषियों का यह वचन सुनकर लोकाचारण परायण महेश्वर प्रसन्नचित हो हंसते हुए इस प्रकार बोले। महेश्वर ने कहा, महाभाग सप्तऋषियों, विवाह को तो मैंने न कभी देखा है और न ही सुना है। तुम लोगों ने पहले जैसे देखा हो उसके अनुसार विवाह की विशेष विधि का वर्णन करें। महेश्वर के उस लौकिक शुभ वचन को सुनकर वे ऋषि हंसते हुए देवादिदेव भगवान सदाशिव से बोले। ऋषियों ने कहा, प्रभो, पहले तो भगवान विष्णु को विशेषतः उनके पार्षदों सहित शीघ्र बुला लें, फिर पुत्रों सहित ब्रह्मा जी को, देवराज इंद्र को, समस्त ऋषियों को, यक्ष, गांधर्व, किन्नर, सिद्ध, विद्याधर और अप्सराओं को प्रसन्नता पूर्वक आमंत्रित करें। इनको तथा अन्य सब लोगों को यहाँ सादर बुलवा लें। वे सब मिलकर आपके कार्य का साधन कर लेंगे, इसमें कोई संशय नहीं है। ब्रह्मा जी कहते हैं, नारद, ऐसा कहकर वे सातों ऋषि उनकी आज्ञा ले भगवान शंकर की स्थिति का वर्णन करते हुए वहाँ से प्रसन्नता पूर्वक अपने धाम को चले गए। इसके साथ ही आज का अध्याय 34, 35, 36 समाप्त होता है। जय गुरु जी, संजय जी। और पढ़ने में कोई भूल चूक हुई उसके लिए माफ़ी चाहूँगा। और शुक्राना गुरु जी, आपने जो